how can we use AI ethically and responsibly and really be creators and not just consumers. We used to talk about, we wanted students to be leaders and not followers. I think now what we really have to stress, be a creator and not a consumer.
You're listening to the smartsocial.com podcast, your trusted source for real-world tactics that keep students safe and help them to shine online. I'm your host, Josh Ochs. Each week, I sit down with K-12 superintendents, district leaders, and community voices who are shaping digital safety. We discuss wins, struggles, and strategies used to guide students so they can be safe and successful online. Now let's get back to the conversation.
Hello, my name is Gary Beidleman. I'm the superintendent of the Manhattan High Schools District. We are part of New York City Public Schools. We have 32,000 students in 46 schools here in Manhattan, the greatest of the 5 boroughs in New York City.
Superintendent, I'm so pumped to have you on here today. We're going to talk a little bit about safety, keeping kids safe, which is our dream here at Smart Social, and we're going to talk about keeping them successful. How do we get kids to shine online so that the person behind the screen and in front of the screen is always the same, so they're branding themselves positively? Hello to our audience all over the country, whether you're a superintendent of a school district, whether you're a parent or anyone in between. We love you, guardians, grandparents. We are your cheerleaders as well. We're going to talk today about a rational and reasonable way we can navigate this crazy digital world we're in. You know me, I'm Josh Ochs. For the last 13 years, I've dedicated my life after Walt Disney Studios brand marketing. How do we keep these kiddos safe? How do we help them navigate this digital world? If you're listening to us today on audio only, you'll sometimes hear me say I'm holding up my iPhone, and that's where we are pointing to these digital devices we give kids. Today is a no-shame broadcast. We're going to talk about tips you can use so that you know best practices. If you've already given your kids a phone at an early age, we'll talk about some ideas on how to be a little bit of a tough, loving parent to really nurture your kids so that when they're 25 years old, they are the best resilient kid possible, so that when they're in your 4 walls at home, we're making the right mistakes and guiding them the right way so that they're great when they're outside of your home. Superintendent, walk me through just a real quick background on you. You started off probably as a teacher. What city and state and what type of teacher were you?
So it's interesting. I started off as a director of a after-school and summer program in New Haven on the campus at Yale. It was great because we got to live. We served a housing project in New Haven. So in the summers, my counselors and I lived in an apartment in the community with the students. So that was amazing. After that, I moved to Washington, D.C., and I did student recruitment and retention for the Black Student Fund. We worked with over 150 private and independent schools in the DC metro area. Then I did some community organizing, youth justice, and a friend said, hey, you should be a teacher. So I went into a school, Prince George's County, Maryland. First started off Southeast, Washington, DC, then in Prince George's County, Maryland. And the entire time I'm there, I was voted the funnest teacher and the meanest teacher. And my principal told me, she said, I've never seen this combination. She was like, the same kid who said you were the funnest teacher and they love you so much said you're the meanest. And she said, it says a lot about your expectations. And I said, 100%. We can have a great time, right, in our school communities. But the bottom line is we want you to learn. You come, your parents send you here, your grandparents, your aunts, your uncles, your entire family unit is sending you to get an education. And as an educator in this school building, and now as an educator leading this district, it's my job to make sure we do everything possible that the dreams of those people who love and support you are realized.
I love that. And parents, for all of our audience listening, that's that tough love I'm talking about. You can love the kids so much and make them feel like you are their biggest supporter, but we're going to talk about some expectations, some parameters. You have to fit between here, and this is what success looks like. Superintendent, I love that. Okay, now I've got a couple questions for you. We're going to hit on, for all of our audience, today we hit on some safety stuff. We're going to hit on some parent engagement ideas. And then we're going to dive into some dialogue starters towards the end, which is super important. And we're going to get the superintendent's advice on, from back in his community organizing days, how do we activate these kids to get them thinking about, whoa, I am on screen time too much. Nobody's asked me that. So that's towards the end. Stay to the end. You're going to get a bunch of dialogue starters you can use for your kiddos at home or in the classroom. All right, superintendent, After 220 plus of these superintendent conversations with your peers in 45 plus states, I think we're the #1 superintendent podcast in the world. We haven't applied to Guinness Book of World Records, but we've heard a consistent trend, superintendent, and this is my job, is to save kids' lives all over the country by listening to you. I will be taking notes for our audience. If you see me looking down, I got a pen and paper. Okay, superintendent, we're hearing that students are growing up in a digital world filled with powerful tech, AI, and social media, but they're often lacking the maturity and guidance to use it safely in some cases. The result in some cases is more student absences, lower focus because of screen time, rising cyberbullying, declining self-esteem. They might be comparing themselves to others. And now the wild, wild west that we live in, AI misuse in the classroom where we're trying to manage that. It's never easy. On the same token, parents are also trying to raise good kids in a world they didn't grow up in, a world where we're hearing technology moves faster than safety policies. Teens are so clever, parents. They know how to hide apps and online behavior. Every parent's probably nodding their head going, I see it every day. And safety lessons usually come after a crisis. I like to call it whack-a-mole. Okay, what's the safety issue next? Okay, let's try and get ahead of it. Superintendent, I want your advice. Are there any other trends on this topic that you've seen so we can alert other school districts nationwide before they see them?
Yeah, like you, I took some notes here. So I wrote down motivation, screen time, AI, and safety policy. So first starting with the motivation, and you and your subscribers will have to forgive me because sometimes I move from Gary Beidleman, the dad, Gary Beidleman, the grandfather, to Gary Beidleman, the superintendent. So I think about my own children, who I have 2 in college, one who's an adult and one who's a senior in high school. And my son and I recently were on the trip. We were actually going up to Martha's Vineyard. We're on the ferry going from New Bedford to Martha's Vineyard, and the view is amazing. Like, we're on top of the ferry, we're looking around, and I look next, I was like, man, isn't this great? And I look next to me, and he's 20-year-old, junior in college, and he's on his phone, like looking at a video or some reel. And I was like, dude, and this is you have that kid that you can really be honest with, and he's the one I can really be honest with. I was like, dude, your whole life is just passing you by right now because your face is in the screen. I was like, look at this amazing view around us. Look at nature right now. I felt like the transcendentalists, right? Like equating nature to intelligence. All these. I was like, look at nature around you. Like, you should be at peace right now. And a lot of times I feel like as if the devices are triggering for students. And so that's kind of moving into the screen time, the safety policy, the motivation, kind of melting that all into one. As an adult, I'm a gamer. And so I have different group chats for different games I'm in, and guys from, and gals from around the country are, we're all in these games together. And there are times when someone will say something inappropriate or they will say something mean. I'm grown. I'm an adult. They will say something mean, and I will say, I'm not going back to that chat. I'm not going to look at that again. And I'll put the chat on pause for a couple days. I do not believe our youngsters, right? And I mean, this is teenagers on down, have the EQ to say, I'm going to pause this. I'm going to step away from this chat because you know what? It doesn't really fit how I feel right now. This is not making me better. It's not making me feel good about myself. Let me step away from that. And so as my own children started to play games with me, I was super intentional, particularly with chat rooms, with messaging, saying to them, we don't know them, you don't message them. We don't know them, you don't chat with them. No, turn your mic off. And this is when, the height of the pandemic, we had 3 PlayStations going on, 3 different TVs, and me and 2 of my sons, and we're on, playing different video games online with one another on teams together. And if I'm not there, your mic's not on. If I'm not there, you're muting everyone else because it could be a safety issue. We don't know who's on the other end of that microphone. And in terms of screen time, I think, kind of my son and I on the ferry. So that weekend, like we spent together traveling, I just really noticed. And I said, man, how much time are you spending on your phone versus being present? And as we did the local buses as we're going through Oaks Bluff. And I said, you got to get off your phone because you don't even know where we are. I was like, if you have to get back to the hotel from where we're staying, how will you know? Like, you're not even aware. You're not viewing what's going on around us. You're not present. And then I think the last thing around AI, it's always for me, I stress with my own children. I had a great conversation with my boys who are in college, just dropped them off at Howard University this week. And we had a great conversation around setting them up for success using AI as a support for the work they're currently doing. And I'll get to more of that. I think there are probably some other questions you may have directly related to AI, but really, how can we use AI ethically and responsibly and really be creators and not just consumers? We used to talk about, we wanted students to be leaders and not followers. And you'd always tell your child, be a leader, not a follower. I think now what we really have to stress, be a creator and not a consumer. And I actually got that from a friend of mine he's a venture capitalist down in North Carolina. And at his 50th birthday party, his son said, "Yeah, Dad, you always taught me to be a creator and not a consumer." And it almost knocked me out of my seat. I was like, wow, this is the new age, the contemporary leader versus follower conversation. Are we teaching our children? Are we creating spaces for our children just to look at the screen, or giving them opportunities to create what's behind the screen, write what scripts for what's going to be on the screen? But are we just allowing them to sit idly and soak up whatever content is there that's not making them better, that's not making them smarter, that's not making them better people, that's not teaching them to be a better friend, a better child, a better adult?
I have one pro tip question for you before we move on to the next topic. Because you mentioned this gamer thing, which I think is really rare and cool. Okay, so a lot of kiddos that we're hearing nationwide are saying, you mentioned, if we don't know them, we don't chat with them. But here's the disconnect. And I want to get I want you to put your dad hat on for a sec, keep it on. And I don't think you ever should remove that. I love it. A lot of kids will say, but Dad, I do know them. I've been chatting with them for a month. So here's what I want to get from you. And you're a leader in an organization, a big organization. I'm a leader. I want to define things carefully. The way we define things helps kids better understand. For example, let's pause for a sec. Some psychologists are saying, stop telling your kids, be careful, because kids don't know what to be careful of, but rather put your helmet on, focus on where you want to go, and then the rest, and then look for cars, and then the rest, you have fun. And now they know what to be careful with. So I want to define what is a stranger, super detailed. How do you talk to your kids so that they understand you've never met that person in person? They've never sat around the dinner table with mom and dad. You haven't met them in the classroom or in the hallway. They're a stranger. Please define that.
Yeah. Wow. That's an excellent point about really being specific about this because it's important. It's super important in this digital age. So I think about my youngest son who has Asperger's. And so for him, what we take for granted in creating these social relationships and interactions with other people, when you watch him, you realize how much we take it for granted. Anyone can befriend him and he believes, wow, they're my friend, right? This person is my friend. We're on a video game one night, and this was during the pandemic, and the servers went down, and he was like, oh, we could just use the West Coast servers. And I was like, well, how do you know that? He was like, oh, my friend Rafi. Like, where's Rafi live? He says Alaska. I'm like, Rafi in Alaska? He's like, yeah. So I was like, okay. So we switched to West Coast servers. The next day, I was like, hey, when are you getting on with Rafi? Right? I want to run a game with you guys. Let me know when you're getting on. So I think my first tip for families would be involved, right? So for me, the video game have never been in closed spaces. It's always in an open, common space. We weren't using headphones. Your speaker is open, so I can hear what's being said, so I can hear what's going on. So I think first pro tip, start with your friends, right? You can build community with other young people from your school, young people from your neighborhood, and then start to teach the conversational skills there. Don't share information about what's going on in our house with the person you're speaking with, right? That was always my thing. Don't say, yeah, dad's leaving, going to the mall, dad's going to do this, he's doing that, right? Don't share personal information with anyone that's online. don't ask personal questions or answer personal questions with anyone that's online. Make sure the conversation is about the game. When people start to take the conversation away from the game, let them know you can't continue with the conversation. You're just here to play the game. I think another one would be kind of along those same lines, know when to exit the conversation. I think the video game manufacturers have done a great job now of putting these safeguards in where you can mute during gameplay. You could just mute the person that's talking or in the chat room with you. Back when I played SOCOM, back in 2004 on my broadband connection on my PlayStation 3, there was no mute button. You couldn't mute the conversation. So when there was inappropriate language used, either I'm going to play this game or I'm not going to play this game. So I think parents should understand where those mute buttons are, exercise those mute buttons, be present while the child is engaging, or at least spot check. I'm going to spend 15 minutes with you. If I'm reading the magazine, I'm going to sit in your space while you're playing this game and read the magazine. And then another thing I stressed with my own children was integrity, and really defining integrity. I say, hey, integrity is whatever you do when I'm not around, it's the same thing you're doing if I'm sitting right here. And so I need you to play the game with integrity. I need you to be a gamer who's full of integrity, that you're only going to say the things that you would say if I'm sitting here, that you would say if I were not. And so there was one instance when one of their friends was on and he made some inappropriate comments. We were playing NBA 2K with an NBA player. We were playing against the NBA player. This was during the pandemic. All the NBA players were online. And one of his friends said some very inappropriate things to the NBA player. As soon as I saw that kid's parents, I was like, oh, by the way, didn't he let you know that we play games together online? Oh, yeah, he told us. Let me tell you what he said, right, when we were playing. Like, not saying it, to try to get your kid in trouble or anything. I just want you to know what's going on online. So I think as parents, we have to talk to one another. Parents, whoever the adult is, we have to talk to one another. And it's kind of like growing up in neighborhoods and communities 30, 40 years ago. If you did something on the corner or a block away, before you got to the house, your mom knew, your grandmother knew, whoever it was knew, because the adults were talking to one another. And they would say, Gary was over there on the baseball field and I saw him cursing at another kid. Parents would talk, adults would talk. So I think that's also kind of a safeguard and something that can help us, just having conversations with one another about things we're seeing and hearing.
Such great tips. I love that. I took so many notes. That's absolutely great. So for all of our audience here right now, you know that we reach a couple million people a year. We get a lot of questions from our weekly parent evening events where we bring all of you parents up to speed on the latest digital safety trends and dangers. One of the biggest questions we get is, hey, Josh, what advice would you give to a student to help them recognize some of the red flags of a dangerous stranger? And this is kind of relevant with gaming as well. Well, rather than the superintendent and I answering, let's hear from a real student about how she might help a friend recognize these red flags.
If I had a friend talking online to a stranger, I think that I would feel a little bit uncomfortable with the whole situation. I would advise against it because so many indirect issues can come from that, and it could cause something to be worse than if they had just unadded them in the first place. Some red flags that I would have to advise them to cut it off with this person or to stop engaging would be if the person starts to get very involved in their personal life and they seem to be very intrigued in what's going on with them and wanting to know all the little details about what they do and who they are, and just very personal details and things that you wouldn't normally share with a stranger in real life. If they're very persistent and constantly wanting to talk to my friend or constantly trying to be involved in their life or wanting to speak to them, I feel like that's kind of a red flag. Another thing would be if they ask them to ever meet them anywhere in person right from the start. If they feel a sense of being uncomfortable or their intuition is just saying it's wrong, or if my intuition is saying something feels wrong with this, then I think that's a major red flag.
So parents, this is part of our weekly parent evening events. And if your district is a partner of ours, remember those weekly live parent events and replays. If you come on out, not only are you going to learn from real teen-led video lessons you can see in the center of the screen, you're also going to be automatically entered for a chance to win a Kindle, a 3D printer, a Bluetooth speaker, because every one of our live events auto enters you to win. Not only are you going to learn, but you're going to win cool prizes. And we have a premium parent newsletter. Parents, I want to walk you through our next live event. So if your district is a partner, you also complimentary get our latest parent app guides on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Snapchat, Fortnite, Minecraft, Roblox, Netflix, WhatsApp, and 450 more. And in addition, we also have them in English and 11 other languages. So you've got them in English, in Espanol, and Mandarin. No one's left behind. Parents, remember, if you have questions about AI for student success, we have a lot of real teachers and an army of parents based here in the US that do our research so that you can be the most knowledgeable on how to promote learning and reduce cheating, taught by real teachers with Smart Social's blessing. And then we've got professional development, the impact of screen time. We do 50 of these a year. You can also see replays, the latest trends, and so on. All right. And so if your school district is a partner, we welcome you to come out and try that out. All right, Superintendent, we're back over to you. Now, in addition to these 200 plus conversations that we've had with your peers nationwide, we've heard from these communities. Many parents, they say, are feeling overwhelmed trying to keep up with fast moving online trends and digital safety risks. And we're hearing that students are finding clever ways to increase their screen time and bend the rules, especially when the expectations at school differ significantly from those at home. Superintendent, what trends or pain points are you seeing when it comes to parent engagement? And where do you feel families are struggling the most to stay informed or connected?
Great questions, Josh. We had a conversation this week. In New York City, we have a parent coordinator in every school. So a parent that works directly with the parent association, PTA, they provide professional learning for families and create opportunities for families to just better engage with the school. One of the things we talked about, we've always talked about digital citizenship. How do we promote digital citizenship? Who are those partners out there that we can bring in, that we can stand shoulder to shoulder with and ensure our families are prepared? Our students are about 2 months ahead of where most organizations are. And so when an organization comes in and they're working with families and they'll say, look out for this. And I'll say, wow, a student just taught me that workaround 2 months ago to get around the firewall right in my office. A student just taught me that. And so what I say to parents most times is I think about the scammers out there, right? You get the scammer voicemail or phone call and they say, we believe your credit card or something has been compromised. And most times I'm like, oh yeah, is that so? And I just hear them out. And oh really? And I just let the person talk and talk and talk because they're waiting for us to prompt them for the next thing, right? I think a lot of times we can really confront the predator that's online or find the predator online through our silence, right? Once they get off script, you say this, they're waiting for you to say this next thing. They're waiting for you to say, oh, I can't give you that information because then they have immediate rebut to it to try to, get you to this place. They've practiced time and time again with youngster after youngster. Like they are practiced. What they can't get around and what I found, like when I get the AI spam call, I'll always say, how can I help you? What can I help you with? And they'll give their spill. And I'll keep saying, what can I help you with? What can I do for you? And then finally the AI tool will say, I do not understand your response. And the call hangs up, right? And so instead of answering the questions, like just silence, like, hey, I'm going to mute you, right? I'm not going to talk to you. But it's how do we train our students to have that level and our children to have that level of intelligence to be able to pause that conversation, redirect that conversation, not give information, because we always say respect adults and, so, okay, this might be an adult talking to me. We need to get back to the 80s, right? Where I don't want you to get snatched, right? There was a big thing with kidnapping and we learned as children growing up how to avoid the van moving slowly down the street, right? There are so many slow moving vans online. How are we equipping students and children to avoid that, right? That van with the candy that's trying to get you to come in. Like we have to get back to that and see online, the internet, AI are beautiful things that are going to make us as a society better. It's going to make us smarter, more efficient, bring us together as a world closer together. But at the same time, as Superman, is doing this, right? As Wonder Woman is doing this, these great things to bring us together to make it better for all of us, there are bad actors. There's Lex Luthor, there's Ares, the god of war, right? Who are trying to work against these superheroes that are trying to make this a great place for us, who are trying to make it a bad place for us. And I think unintentionally, there are some software developers and companies that don't understand that they are bad actors and that the addictive nature of their content or the addictive nature of their site, which keeps students from being productive. I have to stop myself many times. I'm older, so I'm on Facebook and I'll watch a reel and then the next one comes on and the next one comes on. And then you look up, it's like, oh my goodness, I've been doing this for 20 minutes now. And the show I was watching is like 2 episodes later. So I'm aware, conscious of that. Yep, when I'm watching, let me put my phone face down, right? If we're having family time and we're watching a family movie, let me put my phone face down. A lot of times now, I leave my phone in the bedroom. We had a rule at dinner, no screens at dinner. And it was as hard for me as it was for my children, but no screens at dinner. And we're going to have conversation. We're going to talk to one another. You're going to tell me about your day. And it was sad that, I guess not sad, it's the state of the world we're in, where I really had to provide prompts for my own children for us to start to have conversations while at the dinner table.
We're going to get into that right now. What a great segue, Superintendent. By the way, I'm taking a ton of notes. So just so you know, you are full of these wisdom bombs. I love it. I'm so glad you have your dad hat on right now, because it's really, I think it's the most helpful hat right now. Okay, for all of our audience, as if this isn't enough great tips so far, I want to give you a teaser of one of the parent night events we have. We do a lot of anti-bullying, sneaky ways video apps keep teens watching. We've got all kinds of screen time ways, and we've got a dangerous predator one that I want you to watch someday. So if your district isn't a partner, they are a partner, it doesn't matter. Let's watch this one. We're going to talk to you about understanding the subtle ways video apps keep teens captivated, and you're going to learn strategies to help them balance screen time. One of the bigger questions we get every year when we do this big topic is, Josh, what are some tips to help my team manage their screen time? And a lot of superintendents nationwide have told me, Josh, if we can overcome screen time addiction, most of these other problems will just melt away. So let's not hear from the superintendent and I. Let's rather hear from 2 teens with tips on how to reset screen time. Then we're going to dive into some dialogue starters, and we're going to get the superintendent to give us some tips from his dad's side, from his educator side, on how we can open your kids up with open-ended questions. So here we go. Let's dive into these 2 teens on how to reset their screen time.
I just try to hold myself accountable about how much time I'm spending, because you can get lost really easily. While you're doing it, you think 30-second videos, what's the harm in that? But then when you've launched 4 hours out of your day, you feel a lot of regret. Why would I spend 5 hours scrolling on this app before bed when I could have been getting more sleep or being more productive throughout my day? My mom, she always lets me know when I'm just dead scrolling on TikTok for hours. Like, she usually tells me how long it's been. You should probably get up and go do the things that you need to do. So besides holding yourself accountable, it's really helpful if you have a parent or someone that cares about you to hold you accountable for how much time you're losing on those video apps.
Some techniques I use to stop myself from getting sucked into social media is being very aware of why I'm on there, as well as understanding how it's addictive. Even though it can be fun to just sit on the phone and scroll and immerse myself in it, keeping in mind the things I need to do and setting aside the time to do that rather than falling into it like a trap.
All right, parents, now your kids may roll their eyes at you sometimes, and we want to let you know that you get 5 extra points if you ask questions, and even if they roll their eyes, you get points for showing up to the table to try this, and who knows, they may come to you in the future because you felt open enough to push them to ask these questions. So here's some questions, parents, you can ask your teen or younger kids to have an open conversation to help them evaluate the quality of their screen time. This is the #1 safety app in the world. Is that rich and healthy and ongoing relationship you have through dialogue with your kids? It's the only thing that's going to help your kids, in our opinion. #1, you could ask your teen or younger kid, how do you feel after your screen time? And what's also interesting, here's a pro tip. Let's up level this a little. Not only is this not a yes or no answer they can answer, it's how do you feel? You could also say, how do your friends feel after their screen time? And that's another way to unlock your kiddos, is ask about their friends. They feel like you're less threatening to them. Does this app or activity make you feel stronger or weaker after 1 hour? These are great for in the car ride to school or at home when a lot of young boys like to sit shoulder. They only talk when they're shoulder to shoulder. They don't want to be talked face to face sometimes. And then also maybe the dinner time around the dinner table. Hey, what screen time or activities make you feel stronger? Interesting question, right? Well, I feel stronger when I'm watching YouTube STEM education. Okay, let's dive into that. Okay, well, how does that feel? What activities make you feel more focused or relaxed? Well, maybe when I'm trying that guitar, I suck at the guitar, but I'm trying to play it more, and now we're opening up the kid. How does the kid feel about this? And last, this is a fascinating one. How much time do you think is healthy? And this isn't for you parents. This is for kids to also give you feedback. Well, we talked earlier, maybe an hour of TikTok. All right. But can we agree to get your homework done, your chores done? And then can we do TikTok together so you can teach me a few things if we're going to be on it? Superintendent, please, what dialogue starters, tactics, tips do you have for parents to open their kids up in addition to what you're seeing here?
Sorry, screen time for my children started in church. So in order for me to enjoy the service and be a part of the service when they were little, I pass out the iPads, right? And at certain points in service, okay, I'm seeing families in grocery stores, and you'll see the kid in the cart, and they're on the parent's phone, and they're looking through the phone scroll because the parent just wants to be able to grocery shop, and I get it. I get it 100%. I think the payoff, and I learned this early in the game. Okay, you guys have that screen time during church. After church, we're going to go home, change clothes, go to the park for an hour before we have dinner, right? So I'm going to trade off, right? You gave me peace. Now I'm going to go outside with you for an hour to balance that screen time off. And I think many times we're busy, right? We all work. I think about my dad who worked 2 full-time jobs, when I was younger. We're all busy. But what's the trade-off? Am I able to spend a little extra time, right, with doing an activity with my child away from the screen? We have some great, during the pandemic, we have some great Monopoly games at home. Pulled out the Monopoly board. A favorite of ours is Connect 4. We'll take out Connect 4, have a little tournament. I think about when we go to certain restaurants and they'll have games, on the table. Well, no, put your phone away. Let's all take turns. Cracker Barrel, they have a little thing with the golf tees. And let's see who can get it down to just 2 tees, left. And just making it competitive, making it fun. So I think that's one thing. I think another thing is really understanding what your children are doing. And so I learned about Fortnite and Roblox and those other games, Minecraft, because my kids were like on the Chromebook when they were younger. And I'm like, well, what are you doing? Like, tell me about what you're doing. And so at that time, I was a middle school principal. Then when I went in the cafeteria and I saw the rows of kids on laptops, I'm like, oh, what are you guys playing? Minecraft? And they're like, yeah, Gary, how do you know we're playing Minecraft? And I sit with them and we talk about what they were doing. And I would make the connection between what they were doing and problem solving, what they were doing in critical thinking. I'm starting that, like, let me make this a teachable moment. And then I was doing it at home as well. On my job, I face a similar decision where I have to decide this or this. What's making you choose this instead of that? What made you choose to build here? What made you? So really interacting with your children while they're playing the games and letting them explain to you what's going on, making them prove with evidence, right? They're making a claim. I decided to make this move with my character. Oh, provide me the evidence why that claim is correct, right? You're teaching them essay writing skills, right? So how can you adapt that critical thinking and really that scholarly thinking into the games that they're playing every day? I spoke about my younger son who has Asperger's, and he's going to be a sophomore in college. And whenever he play a game, we might play Madden, and he'd be playing online. And I would say to him, okay, why'd you choose that particular play? Or he's also a soccer player. And I'm like, what was your strategy going into today's game? Like, what were you thinking about as you were approaching that opponent? And really making him be metacognitive instead of his thinking being lost in the game. And I don't want you just to play the game. I want you to think the game. And so even when we can apply that also to students who are watching videos and different things, well, what makes that video interesting to you? Why was that interesting? Turn it into a book club, right? Have screen time club with the kids. Like, let's sit down and let's talk about what was your favorite video you watched this week? Well, why do you think it was so good? It had 8,000 views. Why do you think so many people watched it? But really having conversations about it. Create home. My dad was one, he would create homework for us as kids in the summer. Write an essay on the 5 best YouTubers out there, right? And have your child sit down. Well, let's do the research together. How will you determine this is one of the best YouTubers? But really turning these everyday tasks and things that kids are now automatically doing into real thinking moments. And I think one final thing on this topic, I had a really good conversation. We have a cell phone ban that we're implementing in New York City Public Schools starting first day of school, September 4th. Some schools already had bans on cell phones. I think it's a great thing because it's gonna detach students from the devices, allow them to be better engaged with what's going on in the classroom. But PTA president said, Gary, just one question. What social emotional supports are we putting in place for students now that they're going to be detached from the safety net? That the phones were safe for some kids who didn't fit, quote unquote, fit in the cafeteria or in large groups, could isolate themselves with their cell phone and just sit with the cell phone. There are students who, it's a safety net. I'm connected to my parent. I may have some, separation anxiety when I go to school every day. Saw that a lot post-pandemic with some students having problems, get back into school. This phone is this is how I know my mom is okay. This is how I know my abuela, like nothing's going on. The state of the world right now. This is how I know my family is safe and nothing's happening to my family. So what supports are we putting in place as a school so that when we take these cell phones away, right, we think about, totally inappropriate comment here, but the only thing I could think of is like the drug addicts, right? And when you take that drug away and that withdrawal, what does withdrawal look like for a teen when we take their cell phone away? And do we know what it looks like right now? So I'm talking to schools about, hey, let's make sure we have games in the cafeteria. When kids are coming together, let's have board games. Let's have some library books in the cafeteria. Let's ensure our libraries are stocked with the books that students like to read, that topics that are interest to them. Let's start pushing more students to the library. Let's work with our public libraries so that students can get in there, hey, check out a book. When you have that downtime in school, you want something there that you can read. Students who are artists, do we have paper? Do we have items for kids who like to draw, kids who like to paint, kids who like to, are there other things for students to do so that we can facilitate that interaction with one another, but we can also allow them to be in their own space and alone if that's what they choose to do. But I think as adults, it's really up to us to create that environment for students so we can curate an awesome experience when they return to school without the cell phones.
I love it. Superintendent, so many good tips. I got a whole page of notes. I'm really grateful. You took a lot of time out of your day. We got back to school coming soon. You gave us a bunch of your time. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
It's been really awesome. I think this is one of the more interesting conversations I've had in 2025, and I've had some great conversations. And really, parents for me are number one, first and foremost. It's school, and it's home, right? If we don't have our families informed, if they're not empowered, then we can't do the work we need to do on the school side.
A lot of great tips. To all of our audience, remember, it's all about keeping your kiddos safe, rich dialogue so we can get them successful someday. That means they're learning a ton in the 4 walls of the school and the district, and they're learning a ton at your house too, at home, the 4 walls of your home, and they're safe there too. We want them eventually at the age of 16 and above to shine online so that when they're ready to be on social, they're building a positive online portfolio that goes on Google so they can get that dream job, career, internship, and everything else. Parents, one last pro tip for you. Whenever you're posting online, remember to keep it light, bright, and polite because your kids are watching and modeling the behavior you have online. And we want it to be positive to help them with their future. I'm Josh Ochs, the founder of smartsocial.com. We hope you'll join us at one of our next live evening parent events so that your district and you can learn how to navigate these digital waters together. I'm Josh Ochs. We'll see you all on the next episode. Have a great rest of the day. Take care. Thanks for spending time with the smartsocial.com podcast. If today's insights were useful, please share the episode with a fellow parent or educator and subscribe so you never miss our next conversation. And parents, make sure to join one of our next live online events each week to keep your family safe and also enter for a chance to win cool prizes. You can learn more at smartsocial.com. I'm your host, Josh Ochs, and parents, remember to keep it light, bright, and polite because your kids are watching what you're doing online. I'll see you on the next episode.